I'm about to show you why you always get the wrong answer or an error when using the cosine law. Let's start with our triangle and our cosine law, rearrange the formula, and plug everything in. By the way, if you're not sure how I set up the cosine law or how I rearranged it, how I got from here to there or from there to here, I suggest you check out these two videos on cosine law, which are linked in the description, where we go in way more detail. Today's video is only about troubleshooting your cosine law. Okay, so let me tell you, the main reason you're always getting the wrong answer is because you're not following BEDMAS. That's right, you're not following BEDMAS properly. Now, some people call it BEDMAS, some people call it PEDMAS, some people call it the order of operations, depending on where you're from. Either way, what you're putting into your calculator is not what you're supposed to be doing. That is why you always get nonsense. Let's look at the first mistake. Okay, so now after I've plugged in all of my values, we just start typing everything into the calculator. 32 squared plus 35 squared minus 30 squared divided by 2 times 32 times 35. Do you see what's wrong here? What's wrong is that your calculator is actually following the order of operations, and it's taking that 30 squared and dividing that by 2, then multiplying that by 35 and by 32. Now, if I were to write it out on paper, you would see why it's total nonsense. I have 32 squared plus 35 squared minus 30 squared, looking good so far. And now I divide that last number by 2, multiply by 32 and 35. Do you see that that is totally different? You want the last three numbers to be in the denominator. And of course, once it's in the calculator, it gives us total garbage. What I need you to do is calculate the numerator, the top, and the denominator, the bottom, separately before dividing them and taking your cosine inverse. Which leads to mistake number 2. We find the numerator separately, which is good, but then we just start dividing it and multiplying it by everything in the bottom. So I get 1349, the numerator, divided by 2 times 32 times 35, which again is nonsense. This is what it looks like when you write it out on paper. 1349 divided by 2 times 32 times 35. Do you see what's happening there? Your calculator, again, is following BEDMAS, and it's first dividing by the 2, but then it's multiplying by the 32 and by the 35, not keeping it in the denominator. What you need to do is have that denominator separate. Again, that gives us nonsense. I need to calculate the denominator and write it down before I can proceed. From here, you can either divide the two numbers and get a decimal value or go straight into taking the cosine inverse of the ratio. But that leads to mistake number 3. So we make sure that we're in degrees, because that would also give us the wrong answer. And then we start typing in cos inverse, which in my calculator says arccos, of 1349, divide that by 2240. And what do I get? I get an error. Why? Because again, your calculator is just taking the cos inverse of the first number that you put in, not the entire ratio. In order to do it properly, I need to keep that ratio in brackets. So take cos inverse, make sure you're in degrees, of 1349, divide that by 2240 in brackets, and then you get your angle. When you're using cosine law, you actually have to go through all the steps and follow your BEDMAS. But what do you do if you're pretty comfortable with your cosine law and you don't really want to write out every single step? I have something for you. Once you have your entire equation written out, just keep your numerator separated by brackets and then divide that by the denominator, also separated by brackets. Make sure that you're in degrees, take your cos inverse, and that's it. Then you're done. You get the exact same answer, and your calculator is actually following BEDMAS. You see? Numerator separate, denominator separate. So that's how it's done. That is how you troubleshoot your cosine law to make sure you're not getting the wrong answer. Now, if you're not sure about how to set up the cosine law, please check out these videos and check out the channel in order to find more trigonometry and math videos. See you next time.